Today we are diving deep into one of the most important parts of our health, sleep. And we're going to explore a wild new technology that might be able to improve it, using nothing but light.
We've all been there, right? You toss and turn all night, and the next day you feel like you're moving through mud. You're foggy, slow, just not sharp. But that connection between a good night's sleep and your brain's performance, it goes way, way deeper than just feeling tired. So what is it about sleep that makes it so absolutely critical for your brain?
While the cost of not getting enough quality sleep is honestly pretty staggering, we're not just talking about being a little off your game. We're talking about your brain struggling to lock in new memories. Your thinking literally slows down. It gets harder and harder to just pay attention. And over the long haul, this stuff adds up. It can even raise your risk for really serious conditions like dementia and just get in the way of aging in a healthy way. It's such a big deal, in fact, that researchers now see getting restorative sleep as a major public health priority.
So, if sleep is that crucial, what can we do? I mean, beyond the usual advice to turn off your phone and avoid caffeine. Well, this is where things get really interesting. We're about to look at a new approach that frankly sounds like it's pulled straight from a science fiction movie.
Okay, it's called transcranial photobiomodulation. I know, it's a mouthful, so let's just call it TPBM. The idea behind it is both simple and kind of mind-blowing. It involves using very specific wavelengths of near-infrared light, which is invisible to our eyes, and applying it to the head to basically give our brain cells a jolt of energy. And the key thing here? It's completely non-invasive. Nothing pierces the skin.
I know exactly what you're thinking right now. Hold on a second. How on earth can a little bit of light from some device on my head get through my hair, my scalp, and my actual skull to do anything to my brain cells? It's a totally fair question. And the answer is pretty amazing. It all comes down to what happens deep inside our cells.
So let's pull back the curtain and get into the science of how this actually works, because at its core, this is all about giving our brain cells a direct power-up.
So here's how this chain reaction happens. First, that near-infrared light is able to penetrate through the scalp and skull. Once inside, it gets absorbed by a special enzyme inside our cells' tiny power plants, the mitochondria. And this is the magic step. That absorption of light kicks the mitochondria into high gear, boosting their production of something called ATP. Now, ATP is basically the energy currency for your entire body. So, more ATP means more energy for the brain cells, which in turn can help increase blood flow and oxygen right where it's needed most.
And that initial energy boost doesn't stop there. It seems to create these really powerful knock-on effects. By powering up the cells, TPBM might also help reduce inflammation, kickstart the brain's natural waste clearance system, and maybe even help fine-tune the very brain circuits that control our sleep-wake cycles. Now, a lot of this is still being explored, but it all points in the same direction, improving the fundamental health of the brain.
Okay, so the theory is solid, right? It makes sense on a cellular level. But the real question is, what happens when you take it out of the lab and try it on actual people? Let's look at the results.
17. That's the number we're working with. A big recent review gathered up all the human studies they could find that looked at TPBM and its effect on sleep, and they ended up with 17 of them. Now, this is still a pretty new field, but that's enough research to start seeing some interesting patterns emerge.
So when you actually sift through these studies, you see some promising reports from a whole range of different people. We're talking everyone from folks with traumatic brain injuries to healthy athletes. For instance, TBI patients said their sleep quality got better and they felt more alert. People with cognitive decline reported sleeping longer. But, and this is a really important but, look at the evidence type. A lot of these findings are based on what people said they felt on subjective reports, not on objective, hard data from a sleep lab.
Okay, so while all of this is incredibly exciting, this is where we need to pump the brakes a little and have a crucial reality check. We have to look at both sides of the coin here, the amazing promise and the very real problems the science still needs to figure out.
And the contrast here is pretty stark. On one hand, you have this massive potential, right? As safe therapy that doesn't involve drugs, that you might one day be able to use in your own home. It targets the basic energy metabolism of our cells. But on the other hand, the scientific hurdles are still pretty big. The exact how is still a bit fuzzy. The results from study to study can be all over the place. And this is the big one. There's no standard recipe for how to do the treatment.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The scientific community is being really upfront about this. A review from 2024 puts it perfectly. Significant research gaps persist. There is an urgent need to standardize intervention protocols. This, right here, is the key challenge that the entire field needs to tackle next.
So, knowing all that, what does the future look like?
What has to happen to get TPBM from being this really cool experiment to a reliable therapy that people can actually use?
Well, the path forward is actually pretty clear. You could almost think of it as a to-do list for the scientists. They need bigger, better, more rigorous studies. They need to use objective measurements like bringing people into a sleep lab and wiring them up to see what's really happening. They've got to figure out the perfect dose of light, the right wavelength, the right timing, the right duration. And finally, they need to figure out who this works best for and make absolutely sure it's safe over the long term.
And all of this leaves us with one final fascinating thought to chew on. Just imagine a future where the answer to better sleep isn't some generic advice, but instead it's a personalized light therapy perfectly tailored to what your brain needs. A therapy that helps you not only sleep better tonight, but helps you protect your cognitive health for decades to come. The science has a ways to go, for sure, but the possibility, well, it's pretty brilliant.